Hi, everyone. Oh.
Hi, everybody. We're figuring out our technical problems.
Thanks for being patient.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have not received it yet, so.
Are you sure that we're live now? I refreshed the live stream and I don't see us. Can folks hear us and put in the chat if they can?
We are live. Song said we're live.
Okay.
You let me know. We're live. I just need that. Okay, good. I just need access to that slide deck. If you, sslopez@sccoe.org.
Yeah, so I emailed them and then I just added you actually on the slides also.
Got it. Okay, let's try this now. All right, you'll just have to let me know to advance for you.
Perfect.
Thank you all for being so patient. We are working with the new platform. We've got it almost up and ready. Okay. Let me share my screen.
And we see your messages in the chat. Thanks for being understanding.
Yes, sorry. We had a bit of a technical difficulty.
How is this? Can I ask Amy, I see your face. Amy, are you seeing my promoting self-determination?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When I get to the videos, I'll need to turn my volume back on. So I'll have my volume off for now, and you just let me know when you're ready to advance to the next slide.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Welcome everybody. Oh, I'm getting feedback when I talk. I guess I'll just talk through it. People hear me okay?
It's very echoey. Are you still on? Maybe if you're on two devices or you were looking at the live somewhere?
I'm not. I turned it off.
Let's all mute except for Sammy and see if it helps.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh gosh.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Why don't you guys start and I'll come back.
Okay. So is there an echo when I talk too? Yeah.
I'm not hearing an echo. Let me ask Sung.
There's no echo. It's just us. Annie, what about
I hear an echo.
I'm sorry, guys. Should we just try to talk through it? Or is it pretty bad?
We can try. It's pretty bad. Maybe we could at least put the link to the toolbox in the chat so people could start looking.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Well, part of what we are presenting about today. I'll put a chat here. Does everybody get that, or is this a private chat?
Okay. If everybody can mute except for the person speaking, my person that's helping me here says that he can hear you fine.
Okay.
Make sure if you have two things running at the same time, make sure you have only one operating with volume.
Okay. I don't have anything else a volume. So we'll just get started. Welcome everybody to our presentation on determination skills and putting them in K-12, pre-K-12 classrooms. I'm Sammy Hayes, and I'm here with Dr. Amy and Cox. Me and I are from North, and he is from the Finance Institute. And the work we're presenting today is funded by from the California Council on Developmental Disabilities. I would love for all of you to access a toolbox we created and posted on the website for this presentation to be able to access it there or access it there. You can go to the next. I'm gonna skip this one just for the sake of time. But today we are talking about self-determination. If you go to the next slide. And self-determination, as we're talking about it, is all about the skills we use as people to make changes in our lives. Changes that we desire, goals that are to us, skills we use to self-regulate and solve problems. So we're going to talk more about specific examples of those things later. But as we talk about self-determination, this is what we're talking about. The next slide shows what we're not talking about today, which is the self-determination program that is supported by the Regional Center. This is a program that allows people with disabilities to access the funds that are allotted to them through Regional Center and decide how to use that to work towards goals that are important to them. So both of these ideas, the program and the concept of self-determination, support people to make valued decisions that impact their lives. But today we are not talking about that program. We're just talking about the process or the concept. And thank you so much. If I was sounding very odd, now I don't hear the echo. It was a little bit hard to talk through that. Sorry. You can go to the next slide. So as we mentioned earlier, we have created a self-determination toolbox that you should all have access to. And I am not able to post in the whole group chat, it seems, but I have placed in the private chat a Google link to that. If one of the moderators could put that in the main chat, that would be awesome. What this is just a toolbox of resources that we have accumulated or created as part of this grant project. There are several different areas, including IEP support resources for self-determination and mini webinars that we are recording. So some of them aren't there yet, but they will be soon. But there are a wealth of resources here. So we hope that as you listen to the presentation today, you can access some of those materials and after. You can go to the next slide. You're on mute, Amy.
Okay, there we go. It was the host muted me. Okay. So as a really critical part of this project, we have been working closely with individuals with a variety of disabilities, with an emphasis on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including autism. So we wanted to just share a couple of videos where these individuals are talking about how they define self-determination. So the first one here is Grant. And he's going to tell us about his experience. And hopefully we can hear him. And host, if you wouldn't mind just clicking on the captions button also on that video. Thank you.
Until I collapse at the end of the day. I am now convinced that self-determination is when you only have the courage to say I am dealing with a set of problems that require help, and I am tired of being shamed toward independence when I am already working harder than my anxiety-ridden heart can bear.
Thank you. Okay. I just figured I'd wave when it's time to unmute me. So, so Grant really emphasized the importance of distinguishing between independence and autonomy. And it's really important to him that self-determination respected his need for support, while also having a say and control about his life. So let's go to the next video, and then I think it's back to me again to talk. And this is Allison Gray. And this is Allison Gray.
I would define self-determination as knowing what you want and speaking up or finding a way to get it. That also includes choices like where you want to live or even what you want to eat when you want to eat.
Right. So Allison really emphasized there the importance of having a say or control over as many aspects of our lives as possible, including from the big decisions to the small decisions, right? So that's really what self-determination is about. And you can actually go to the next slide, and I'll summarize this slide together with that. So really the reason why we focused on this is because we were very distinctly aware of, honestly, the very kind of dismal outcomes for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities when they leave the school system. And we know from our own experience that self-determination is something that's often emphasized as people are nearing the time when they leave school systems and then moving into adulthood. So we often see self-determination addressed in transition plans for students. And moving into post-secondary, it's the whole premise of this program is that we need to focus on self-determination from the very youngest ages. So thinking about moving into preschool programs and early elementary and building on those and scaffolding. You see that spiral, really scaffolding through those skills throughout a student's educational career. You can go to the next slide. Oh, now Annie needs to be unmuted.
Hi. So for this slide, what we wanted to say is it was important for us to actually have a document with the definition of each one of the elements of self-determination that we share with families, with educators. So you'll find examples in our toolbox. And to emphasize that as adults, we know that we need to practice to make and indicate choices, to experience problem solving, and to develop self-knowledge and self-awareness. So it's, thinking about each one of our students or children, about where they are in terms of those and also in terms of the support, it's thinking about providing not more support than needed, really digging in a little bit, looking at the strengths of each one of the students that we're serving. The next slide, please. One recommendation that we have, it's the partnership with families, finding out about what is important for families, their priorities, and thinking about then what are some of the things that parallel to what is going on at home that we can also support at school. We did simply a simple parent questionnaire. We added a question to our questionnaire at the beginning. And here's some examples of the responses that we got from families, really letting us know some strategies that already work for the students. And then thinking about, if you look at the form on the left of the slide, deciding about each of our students' current skills and strengths, and then goals and areas for growth. We also have a set of IEP go ideas to support all these self-determination skills.
Okay, thank you. So we really looked at self-determination from a very big picture perspective and recognize that in order for students to make progress in these skills, they need to be embedded in routines throughout their day within natural opportunities. And so that's why there's that big bubble on self-determination skills embedded within those home and school routines. But we also recognize that all of these other elements need to be in place. So the importance of collaboration across home and school, that this is an ongoing process of learning, learning from one another, but also learning from the disability community. And you see that there's a bubble there dedicated to recognizing the importance of disabled mentors. Several of the individuals with disabilities that we interviewed talked about the importance of access to mentors and role models who have disabilities, who can demonstrate really what self-determination looks like and feels like to them. We're also addressing student participation in the IEP process as a critical piece of self-determination, but not the only piece of this bigger picture. And then finally, we've really looked at how robust communication support really needs to go hand in hand with any emphasis on self-determination. So in order for people to have the sense of control over their own lives, we need to give them access to as much communication support as possible so that they have as many opportunities to say what they need to say to advocate for themselves as we can. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so in terms of actions to promote self-determination, we're really looking at all of the different things that we can do within those activities and routines and regularly occurring opportunities throughout the day to promote self-determination. So this goes from the small things to the big things, right? We've talked about things like making sure that students have the opportunity to engage in what we call productive struggles or opportunities to really, engage in some problem solving within regular activities, helping students to develop that self-awareness by honoring their preferences and building on those preferences, making sure that we're making and sharing plans together with students so that they're a part of making those plans and start to understand what it looks like to have a plan for the day, a plan for an activity, whatever that is. And then also making sure that we're identifying ways to support self-management and self-regulation by identifying those ways for students to calm or soothe themselves, and then giving them lots of access to those strategies or ways to request those strategies. You can go to the next slide. So I think maybe in the interest of time, I think I'm going to describe this video and then suggest that we move on because I know we have extremely limited time. So in this video is a great example of, and these slides are also in the toolbox, so you can access them. It's a great example of embedding a choice within a natural activity for a student with pretty extensive support needs. So this is a preschool student, they're shoveling sand, and the person supporting her created a choice. And so the student needs a lot of physical support to actually manipulate the sand, but they can make an indication of what they want to do with the sand, right? So that's where we're embedding an opportunity to control. So the person supporting her gives her a choice. Where should we put the sand? Are we going to put it in this cup or in this other thing? And so then the student has the opportunity to indicate, and the way that she indicates is by reaching towards one of those choices. And now with that simple movement, she's directing that activity. So she's exerting control over the actions within that activity. We can go to the next slide. And then this is another example of a student demonstrating some control and leadership within a regular activity within the classroom. And you can actually play this video because it's only like 10 seconds long. And then I can talk again.
No. Noah. Sophie.
Super short. And that was a student in middle school who was taking roll as part of a regular routine within his math class. And so it's just a short activity that happens on a daily basis. He's got a tool that supports him with the pictures there of students, and he's able to engage in that regular activity where he's a leader in the classroom independently because it happens frequently. So all the students are waiting for him to call their name. They just say here, and then they move on with their activity. We can go to the next slide. So there are a lot of different, like those little things that we do to support self-determination within these routines. These are some examples of those little actions that we can take. One of the really critical pieces that we've emphasized throughout this year is the emphasis on what are called less intrusive prompts. So really looking at within our everyday interactions with students, how are we supporting their attention to the natural cues that already exist within the environment? And how are we encouraging students to pay attention to those natural cues? And I think I just saw a message from the organizer about going past 2, but I think we were supposed to go to 2:30, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So really focusing on that attention to natural cues. And we just are going to show a couple quick video examples with kind of demonstrating what we mean by embedding that wait time and the less intrusive prompts. If you go to the next slide, we'll kind of show that. So the first video that she's going to click on is just showing what a natural cue is. That's just any indication within the environment that we're supposed to do something. So in this situation, this is Elia Mahoney made these videos and she used her children. So she's just putting out some paint, and that's the fact that the paint is there is the natural cue that it's time to paint. So you can go ahead and click that.
Hey, Rach, here's your stuff.
Okay, so that was super fast, but you saw that there was just paint there, and the child followed the cue that the paint was there and picked up the paintbrush and started painting. Now, we know that many of the students that we serve are not, they might, because of the impact of their disability, might not yet be attending to those natural cues. And so what we tend to do is provide prompting and telling them what they should be doing. We tend to do things like pick up the paint, start painting, or time to paint. The problem is that takes the autonomy away from the student to notice that cue and then choose for themselves to take that action. So we're looking for the least intrusive prompts we can provide to encourage them to notice those cues and take action. So if you go to the next slide, we'll see an example of just a gestural prompt.
Hey, Rach, here's your stuff.
Okay, so it was a little glitchy, but what happened was that she put the paint out, she waited, and when she waited, the child did not respond. And so the additional cue she provided was a gesture pointing, drawing his attention to the paint being there, and then he took action. And then we can skip the next one, but what I'm going to just explain is that the next one is just taking it one more layer and adding what's called an indirect verbal prompt, where we're kind of noticing, what should you do now? Right? So that's as part of kind of our training of paraprofessionals, training of teachers, is helping everybody to really be aware of those small actions that we can take within every single activity to increase the autonomy of students within those activities. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Hi guys. So I'm here just to talk about the importance of wait time. So Amy was talking about decreasing the amount of physical and verbal prompting we're providing. And I think instead of playing this video for time's sake, we will talk about wait time. So in this video, and as you are looking in our toolbox document, the link to these slides are in the document. If you want to watch these videos later, they're available to you. But in this example, there is an adult supporting this student to access his work on a computer. And instead of giving oral cues, this person just points and then provides wait time for the student to find where they're going. And you can go ahead and play the video. So you saw that the child looked to the adult and was asking for help, but instead of doing it for the child or saying something out loud, there was gestural prompting, which really gives that student more of a chance to work through finding the document they were looking for. So as you're thinking about supporting student self-determination, think about the amount of wait time and productive struggle we're giving students the opportunity to have. You could go to the next slide. I believe the next slide is about using checklists. So let's watch this video of the student using a checklist, and we'll talk about the importance of them after.
There you go. There you go.
Take a camera.
All right, so ready? Action. All right, are we in math?
Yes.
Check. Are we in Google Classroom? Check. Boom. We're gonna do airplane?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Right, so what we saw here was a student using a checklist to track their progress in getting ready for math class. Right now, the student is learning to check off these boxes. The thought is after we've taught how to use checklists, we can pull back that verbal and physical and reminder support so that the student is then using the checklist more independently to track their progress towards activities that are important to them, activities that they're working on becoming more independent or interdependent on. So please take a look in our, oh, never mind. This isn't related to that, but checklists are a wonderful support for supporting students to learn a variety of multiple step tasks, but also for supporting our students to self-regulate and understand, okay, there's 3 more things I'm going to do before I get to the end. So that is one way to support student self-determination in your classrooms. We can go to the next slide. And so here's just another example of a checklist you could use to support a student to complete a activity where they're cutting and gluing and writing sentences and then turning in their work. So instead of coming to the student and giving an oral cue for each of these things, we might just point at those steps to give more independence in completing them. And I'm sure you can all think of a lot of other applications that you could create checklists for. We could go to the next one. The next slide is all about integrating goal setting into your whole group class instruction. So as Amy said earlier, it's really important to target self-determination skill instruction really early on. So if we in our kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade classes are supporting students to make and work towards their own goals as a whole class effort, it makes it easier for us or for students to integrate that practice into what they do naturally. And so this video is an example of a class that has been working on whole group goal setting, and I'll talk about how that's impacted their ability to work on these skills after we watch the video. I want to remind you that your goal was stay focused on getting work done during class. Remember making that goal? Awesome.
Is asking you a question.
Why did you just walk towards your goal? I decided to, I picked out of these options something else. Well, why did you do?
Your choices are look at the teacher. Yeah, can you read those, Jack? Oh, use your computer.
Could you ask for help for your goal?
Yeah, who can you ask for help? Let's find school people on here. Who can you ask for help?
Miss Woodward.
Yes, I would be happy to help you. Is there anyone else that you could ask for help with your goal?
For help for your goal.
I didn't need to ask anyone for help.
You didn't need to ask anyone for help. Okay. But Finn, let's say you did. Yeah, exactly. You would go to school people. You could ask Principal Murphy, yeah. Who else could you ask for help at school with your goal? Miss Woodward. Yeah.
I would be happy to help you.
Hi, everybody. So you could see here that because this classroom is working as a whole group on goal setting, every student here has a goal they're working towards, and it creates these spaces to actively discuss every day the strategies the students are using. So you could see this is Finn and his peer, I think it was Jacob. Jacob was talking about who he asked for help, and he said, I didn't ask anybody for help. Who did you ask for help? And this is a wonderful opportunity both to create peer interaction around student goals, but also to make it clear that it's not just students with IEPs that have goals, it's everybody that has a goal. And we are prioritizing discussing the skills we use to work towards our goals. We can go to the next slide. And we'll watch this video and then talk about why we're watching it after.
Have you ever demonstrated when working
I've been for a goal, but I split it up to make it much easier. Like I managed to do one thing at a time as well.
That's so smart, right? You have this big goal.
I work on one thing for each day as well.
Nice. So have you a goal for every day? That's a little piece of your big goal.
Yep. In order to manage the goal frustration, I managed to work out and to do my meditation, even listen to music
Oh, nice. Tell me a little bit more about that. I think meditation is so easy.
Because I do it on the weekends as well.
Okay.
That's why I'm trying to do it as.
So you just put your headphones in and
Yeah,
listen to
and
music?
I close my eyes as well and do it.
And that helps, how does that help you feel?
And we feel refreshed and kind of motivated to do it.
Awesome.
So this was Abir and his teacher Tori talking about how he uses self-determination skills such as problem solving and self-regulation to work towards his own goals. He's talking about how he breaks down his major goal into small manageable pieces so that he can work towards them every day and monitor his progress. And this right here is just a wonderful example of why we explicitly teach these strategies to our students in school. Because now, as this student is in 11th grade and getting to the end of his schooling career, he can go into his adult life and use these skills to work towards those large goals. One thing we know from research on students with disabilities and their work towards major goals is that and all people is that when we see a large problem, sometimes we don't approach it if we don't know how to break it down. And if we haven't received instruction on processes we can use to break those things down, sometimes people just don't work towards those goals or they see them as unattainable. And so by working with our students on these strategies they can use to break down skills and work towards them, we're supporting them to reach for larger and more difficult or more or goals that they think right now are unattainable. So this is a really meaningful practice to be teaching. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So I want to just point out another resource that's available in the toolbox Google Doc that we've shared. And this is a self-determination in home or school routine. So if you're a teacher or a family member of a student with disabilities or without, you can use a document like this to list the steps in current routines and discuss at least 2 areas of self-determination that we can embed in those areas. So let's say you have a student who needs to log into Google Classroom in 3 of their classes every day. This is a really great place to talk about how we can embed self-determination or requesting help into that scenario, or a variety of other skills or times of the day where we can embed instruction in self-determination, embed instruction in choosing goals and working towards them, or having a student check in with themselves on their goal. So this is a document you might consider using, and you can check out. I believe it's in the IEP support section of the toolbox. All right, which brings us to our section on addressing self-determination in the IEP. The next slide shows some information on student-centered planning, person-centered planning. And if you're following the slides in the Google Doc, there's a slide on person-centered planning, and that is not something we have time to cover today, but is an important piece of embedding self-determination into the IEP process by really checking in with the student and those around the student to develop a student-centered plan. And there are lots of resources that I want you to check out in the toolbox. But right now, we're going to watch a video that really highlights the importance of valuing student input in the IEP process. So we can go ahead and watch this video.
Are there any goals that you have set for yourself where you feel like you have accomplished something?
Learning new stuff in school. I told them, well, first of all, I don't like how you guys are teaching because it seems like you guys are teaching the same stuff that all the kids learn in pre-K and kindergarten. And I also told them, and you keep teaching the same stuff over and over again. And don't you think that's not right? You're supposed to teach kids new stuff, not the same stuff. I was very successful, and I'm so happy I'm in general education because they teach you real learning stuff other than special ed, because special ed only teaches I don't know, kindergarten math. That's one of them. And they read special ed stories for history and English. And what even is that for that type of subject? That's not basic learning.
Yeah.
But in general education, they teach.
All right, so we didn't watch that entire clip, but this really highlights the importance of checking in with your students and supporting your students to advocate for the supports and services that they feel are meaningful for them. So you heard in this video, Allison was talking about her desire to be in general education coursework and receive instruction on that breadth of content that is provided in those spaces. And you can see she's been supported to access that. She said, I was successful in doing this. And so making sure we're creating spaces in our IEP process to check in with our students, to value their desires, and to integrate goals into their IEP that they've chosen, whether that's directly related to an academic content area or not, making sure that we are supporting students to tell us, hey, this is something I struggle with or that I don't like about my school day, and I would like to work on that. And they might not have an answer to how to do that right now, but as a team, we can work to support them to find the supports that they need. So we can go on to the next slide. Now we're going to hear another Allison, who we heard from earlier, talking about why it's so important to include your students in the actual IEP meeting. The last video was about including student input. This is about students actually being in their IEP.
So in the beginning, I only stayed for 5 to 10 minutes, and even though it wasn't all content, it's important for people to remember they're talking about a person. And by 4th grade, I stayed the whole time. We would talk before the IEP about what people were going to say, so we had an idea of that, and we had an idea if there were going to be any issues in what areas. But by high school, I was basically running my IEP, and my parents were just there as backup. And it's so important to have students at their IEPs because they're gonna have IPPs with regional centers. They're gonna have individual plans for employment with the Department of Rehab. It doesn't really go away when you get older. It's just the institution that changes.
I think Allison said that better than any of us could in just expressing why it's important to support students from when they are really little to understand the supports and services they receive so they can continue throughout their lives to advocate for those supports. We can go to the next slide. So the next, here's the person-centered planning slide. So please do see the guiding questions for conducting person-centered planning that are available in that toolbox. But this is a very meaningful process. We just don't have time to really dig in today. But we can go to the next slide. So the slides here from here on out include a variety of activities you can do with your students and with your IEP teams before, during, and after the IEP to support self-determination skill growth for your students or your children. So the first thing up there is collaborating to determine how the student will participate in the IEP, making that a priority and collaborating with families in multiple ways, finding out what skills are important to them, what skills are they seeing that their child struggles with in the home that are related to self-determination, getting that student input and actually integrating it into the design of the supports and the goals that are going to go into the IEP. I want to highlight a resource that is in the toolbox called Self-Determination Standards. If you navigate to, I believe it's in the first section in the toolbox, you'll find these self-determination standards. And it is a variety of areas that target student voice, student communication of their needs, and there are actual standards that can help you guide how you write goals related to self-determination for each of your students. You can also use it as a checklist to see, where is your student's strengths and areas of need in the areas of self-determination, and use those to develop your present levels and your goals. And then have the student take some major roles in designing the actual IEP, including having them invite folks to the IEP, asking them who they want to be there. Obviously, there are people that have to be in the IEP, but if the student would like for somebody who's not typically in the IEP to be there, that should be given as an option. We can go to the next slide. So during the IEP, what's one thing you heard from Allison is that the student should be there. The student should convene the IEP by introducing the team members. One strategy that we have identified, or that the field has identified as really important, is students creating portfolios of their work. The student may not lead every section of the IEP to talk about their strengths and needs. They can, but in the beginning, in the early phases, it might be that the student brings work in all of those areas and shares that work. And so a lot of that would be done before the actual IEP meeting, but having the student come with that portfolio and say like, this is what I did for math. Here's how I feel about it. Here's my strengths and my needs related to this product. Or having a discussion about it. And preparing that material prior to the meeting. Let's see here. I'm not going to read all of these because I know we're running low on time, but collaborating with the team to determine how practice for self-determination skills is going to be embedded in the school routines and transition. So you can use that document we referred to earlier to identify times of the day when you can teach self-determination skills. But a real important part of the IEP planning is on the next slide, and that's the creation of goals related to self-determination. And I know we don't have time to read all of these goals right now, but I just want to let you know there are 2 slides here with examples of self-determination related goals. So one example here is Taylor will practice negotiation and self-advocacy using AAC to achieve preferred outcomes, asking for more break time, asking for a preferred activity. Let's go to some of the ones on the next slide. Sammy will identify at least one academic or non-academic goal for herself and identify relevant steps, and will monitor her own progress on a weekly basis and adjust goals related to activities accordingly throughout the academic year. This is a goal that I think could be applied to every single student in every single grade of all years of school, regardless of their disability eligibility status. This is something that we all do as humans and is a really important thing for us to support at school. And so writing it into a student's IEP that they're going to identify at least one of the goals that they want to work on, and they're going to have opportunities to track their progress, and identify how to move forward or receive support to identify how to move forward is really important. Other goals here is up here at the top. When selecting options on higher low tech AAC, Katie will use the something else option. That something else option is so important in working with students who are using AAC devices. Let's say you have you don't have a dynamic display device. You just have a paper-based or a low-tech option that has a set number of options. Having a something else so that that student isn't only able to say the 9 or 20 things on this paper is huge in the area of supporting students to express themselves, because we can't assume that we know, and no student only has 9 things to say, right? So having that something else is important for every activity, every communication device. And writing that in as a goal that the student is going to be learning and being promoted to use that something else is one way to support self-determination skills through that IEP. We can go on to, I think it's the second to last slide. We're almost there. So once the IEP is over, we've got self-determination goals in there. We've identified how the student is going to choose things that are important to them to work towards. We have the rest of the school year that we need to support these skills. So all of the strategies we talked about in this presentation are ways to work on self-determination throughout the year. Embedding opportunities to both teach and practice self-determination skills, and as teachers evaluate how is my student doing. Am I using that self-determination checklist to see if the student is progressing towards those skills? Am I collecting data on that information? Supporting students to advocate for their own accommodations. So if a student always receives a certain type of support, not providing that support for a second to provide an opportunity for that student to self-advocate and say, hey, I didn't get my adapted resource, or I need help with this. And then if that doesn't happen, using that as a teaching opportunity to say, you could use this AAC device to request supports, or here's your list of accommodations. Which one did you not receive just now? To reinforce that, hey, you do receive these accommodations. And if you're missing one, you can ask for it. So with that, I just want to remind on the last slide, I just want to remind everybody that we do, this is another resource to help plan how the student will participate in each area before, during, and after the IEP. But the next slide is the last slide, and it's just a reminder that we did make this toolbox, and everything we shared today is there. I know there were some technical difficulties at the beginning, and some of the videos were hard to hear, so please feel free to download these slides and share this information with teachers ask us any questions. We can, I think our emails are on the website. but we are so glad to share all of this with you today, and we hope that you can use this toolbox in your profession. I think
I just wanted to give a shout out. There's thank you, Susan, for your comment in the chat there. Susan said that when her son was young, that they would write out an outline together of what he needed in the IEP, and then by 6th grade, he was in charge of writing that outline, and that he started the meeting thanks to Susan's insistence. But that led to him also getting more services because he was advocating for the services instead of the parent. So I just wanted to thank you, Susan, for that input. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think that more students should have access to that experience. Unfortunately, right now we're relying on families to advocate, and we're hoping through this presentation and through sharing information that more educators are starting to include that as part of the more common practice. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments in the chat, Sammy, do you want to say something? It looks like you want to say something.
I just said they said in the private chat that we could have extra time for questions if anybody has questions.
Oh, I see. There it is. Looks like maybe there's not any. Well, we'll hang out for another minute or so, but I just wanted to thank you all for being here, for hanging with us. You can see that we have a lot of information to share, and we're going to keep adding recorded webinars to that toolbox site, all focused on stuff that we've been learning from the field, but also from individuals with disabilities themselves. So, so please just keep access to that Google Doc, because we're going to keep building on that. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate the thank yous. Looks like there's no questions, though. And thank you to our hosts. I know you did a lot of quick problem solving and adjusting, and we really just are grateful for all of that support. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Melissa, and Cheryl, and Mary.